Some of you may appreciate the complexity of this movie, but I feel it is a little too complex. Walking into this movie, you may think it's a classic horror movie, but it turns out it's a lot more than that. Because yes, it is by no doubt a horror movie, but not in the same mold as Terrified 2. This movie represents much more mental illness, psychological trauma, and a losing of mind control. I'm sure if you can relate to these things, it will perhaps be a more powerful experience. But if you can't, like me, you just feel at times it is too complex. Compared to some other horror movies, there's more creepy mood, although there are a couple of jump scares which scare you for like 10 seconds, and then the scary feeling goes away. You might feel jumpy after those moments, but not as scared as you perhaps are in Terrified 2, where the moments last much longer. Although I should also tell you that the last hour has much longer scary moments, and some of the scenes in the last 20 minutes are probably some of the scariest scenes I have ever seen, because around the last 20 minutes, the main character has a battle with her own mind, and really have to face her own demons in isolation in the abandoned house her mom died in. At first, she lights the presumed evil entity on fire, thinking she has won, but it just turns out she had been trapped in her own mind and was still back at the house. That moment kind of represented the movie, where she gradually became more and more insane and in the end lost complete control of her own mind. So of course, you can see what I'm getting into about the mind control thing, and mental illness becomes a lot more complex than a classic horror movie. It is more the psychological trauma that drives this movie. The main character by time becomes just like a patient. After, of course, she naturally is traumatized after seeing her kill herself with a knife right in front of her, with a creepy smile on her face. It turns out this is a disease that has been passed on from host to host, and every person going through this starts to see things that aren't there and eventually start to lose control over their own minds to the point they can't take it anymore. That surely sounds scary on the surface, but I guess it's scarier when you can relate to that fear. If I compare this to Terrified 2, that movie is scarier throughout the whole movie, while this one is scarier in small parts. But of course, it is a completely different movie. There's not a horror character that should scare you. It's more the mood and the upbuilding of the mental illness. Surely, at the same time, I was slightly shaky after seeing those last intense 20 minutes, and I understand you can't have those scenes throughout the whole movie. At the same time, it's a longer scary effect than those jump scares, which kinda is more her own mind playing tricks on her. Nevertheless, while I understand the point of this movie, where a mental illness or the trauma completely takes control of your mind and you can't escape, that's something that has never been relatable to me. So I don't understand as much as those working with patients like that or those that has experienced it themselves. Therefore also my review is highly colored by that. And for me, this one lands firmly at a 5 out of 10. I may have given it a higher score if it was more relatable, but for me at times it is too strange, complex, and messy to be my cup of tea.